So welcome to Smartphone Show 10. I know, the last show was shorter, this one's a bit longer at 25 minutes. Sorry about that, but it's all good stuff. A hands-on review of the Mio A701 GPS communicator and the Nokia E61 Blackberry-killer with a thumb keyboard and wide landscape screen. And so to the Mio A701, a nicely finished, very stylish, all-in-one GPS Windows Mobile 5 communicator. The screen's neat and tidy. It's not the brightest in the world, and we did have trouble in bright sunlight, but it's okay for most users, even though it's low resolution, as in 320 by 240. On the left-hand side, buttons for up-down system volume and to zoom in the bundled Mio Map software. On the right-hand side, there's a rubberized SD card holder and a camera button and a headset socket for the supplied stereo earbuds. The most notable hardware feature or omission is the fact that there are no function keys on the front here. Almost every Windows Mobile 5 application that I've seen comes with two soft keys at the bottom of the screen, and there are usually buttons you can press to activate these functions without having to get out your stylus. Not so on the Mio here, and you find yourself pressing this large area of plastic hoping that it'll make a difference. I really can't see why they didn't put function keys in here. The two function keys they have put in are right at the very bottom and are by default allocated to Windows Media Player and to the bundled Mio Map software. Just looking in brief at the main Mio Today screen, they've customised the standard Today screen by taking away the row of recently used programs and putting their own essentially hard-coded shortcut to the programs that they want you to access. Most pointless of all, I guess, is this Mio menu here on the left, which brings up their own menu of 12 programs that they think that you're going to use most. You can't change these, to my knowledge, and there doesn't really seem to be any point. It doesn't add that much over having the standard Windows Mobile 5 shortcuts here in the main start list and under programs. People are very used to customizing these lists and putting the programs and the shortcuts they want in the places they want them, so why you'd want this extra menu rather beats me. But let's switch to Mio Map, the bundled mapping software based on the Teleatlas maps and seemingly available for Western Europe, including Great Britain, which is where I am. You can check the actual coverage and the worldwide details on the Mio website, of course. The front page of Mio Map is this wizard-like interface with the top 4 things they think you'll need to do. A few more than 4 if you look at some of the shortcut buttons, for example here, navigating to your home or actioning a voice command, and of course settings down the bottom. Probably a good place to start would be by taking a look at some of the navigation dialogues. So tap on that. You can see here, you can basically fill in the blanks, but let's start off with an address. Tap on that and type in a postcode. Now note the fact that I've just tapped the screen over 2 seconds before the dialogue appears, and this is typical of Mio Map, that you tap on a field to enter some data, to enter a search string, and you do have to wait, and sometimes you wonder, have I tapped it? Did it register my tap? And this slowness is a slight nuisance. So let's start by putting in my own postcode to find my house. Postcode where I live is RG, switch to numeric mode 5, 3, and at this point I'll stop and note that there are no matches. That's because the software, in a rather brain-dead fashion, wants you to switch back to alphabetic mode halfway through the numbers in the postcode, enter a space, back to numeric mode, and carry on with the numbers. You'd have thought the software would have been clever enough to take out any embedded spaces, like TomTom does, for example. Anyhow, we now have a match of Woodley, which is at least the area where I live. If I go back to alphabetic mode and complete my postcode, you'll see that there are no matches whatsoever. The postcode is very much a macro thing and just gets you to the right area. Again, nowhere near as precise as the competitors, but we'll let that slide for now. Let's say yes to this area. Now it needs the street. Tap in the street. Again, wait 1, 2, up to 3 seconds before the dialog appears, and then putting in the street name, Grays Crescent, Woodley. Okay, we've now got enough information, we can start navigation. See, we've found my street on the map, and we've also got a GPS fix going, as you can see here from the number of satellites here, 6 at the bottom of the screen in the status bar. The top and the right hand toolbars are toggled on and off by touching this little orange bullet, and the ones of note are the scroll map option here. At top left there's north up, which can toggle the map to always be north up if you prefer that orientation. There's 3D, which as you expect gives you a TomTom like 3D display, and you've seen that just now in the video sequence. And you've got manual zoom in and out buttons, which behave as you'd expect. At any point you can tap and hold on the map and start navigating to that point to search nearby for a point of interest, or save it as a favourite.
So here's the little video sequence I told you about earlier, taking the A701 out on the road. The match-up between what you see outside the windscreen and what's shown in the 3D representation on the display is pretty good, as with most navigation systems these days, and the screen updates were almost as fast as the market-leading TomTom navigator. At the bottom left of the screen you can see the 2 junction boxes, the larger of which is the next junction, and the one above it, the smaller diagram, is the junction after that, and this system works well. If there are no junctions coming up for a while, those 2 boxes disappear. The clarity of the voice instructions was pretty good, in a nice clear English, and I presume also for the other European languages involved. Unlike TomTom Navigator, which actively encourages you to interact with it by telling it about obstructions, changing where you're going via and so on, Mio Map is very much set it and forget it, at least until you get to the next destination.
Looking at the preferences of Mio Map, you can instantly see the sort of things that you can change, much as you'd expect: user imposed speed limits, the style of the maps, routing options, and perhaps most importantly, volume. There we go.
Quieter, 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 louder, louder, louder.
You can see that at maximum volume the Mio Map on this A701 is pretty loud, and I had no trouble hearing it even when driving fast. The interface navigating around these preferences, and in fact the interface navigating around Mio Map as a whole, isn't as intuitive as its competitors, but and indeed the software itself hasn't got as many functions and options as things like TomTom Navigator 5 and maybe even Copilot, but I still wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to someone to get them from A to B, and it's certainly nice having everything within the one unit. Another nice touch is the fact that along with the Pocket PC itself, the communicator, Mio supply everything you need in terms of a 12-volt car lead, a vacuum mount to go on your windscreen, the cradle to hold the communicator in place, and then in short, in the one box you get the Windows Mobile 5 smartphone, GPS, software, hardware, everything you need to go from 0 to fully set up. Away from the mapping software, and apart from the today screen differences I noted earlier, it's a pretty standard Windows Mobile 5 device. You'll be familiar with almost everything on every menu. Minor criticisms might be minor points, like the fact that the Bluetooth is only Bluetooth 1.2, the USB interface is only USB 1.1, so again they haven't used cutting edge technologies. Even the camera on the back is a very average 1.3 megapixel camera, and the pictures it took certainly weren't remarkable in any way. So there we have the A701. At 149 grams it's very, very holdable as a phone, as a communicator, as a GPS navigator. It scores well in each of these areas without being exemplary in any of them. A jack of all trades, master of none, certainly, but it looks the part, and aside from these missing function keys, I have no real major black marks against it. Certainly worth a look if you're in the market for something that's truly converged, a proper GPS communicator. So here we have the Nokia E61, styled very much after the RIM Blackberry and the popular Palm Trios, with a thumb keyboard and a landscape screen, certainly bigger than previous Symbian Series 60 devices. So this is a first for them. It's metallic, it's very light, it's rather wider than normal. If I compare it with my Nokia N70, you can see the difference from a traditional Series 60 form factor to this new thumb keyboard in widescreen form factor. Looking on the left of the device, there's up and down volume, which is not only for call volume but also works for the built-in music player and video player. And a third button, this is voice recording, so that you can use the device as a memo to self or dictaphone for recording interviews, for example. On the bottom you've got standard pop ports. The right is fairly sleek and free, as is the back. And if you pop the back off, you can see that there's the hot swappable mini SD expansion slot. So I'll take the two unique features first. The keyboard I can demonstrate if I just pop into the built-in notes applications and go and start up a new note. Let's do some typing. The best podcast in the world. I timed this, by the way, at about 26 words per minute, which is pretty good and a lot faster than input using a stylus-based PDA or predictive text on a traditional Nokia smartphone. So that's the keyboard works pretty well. There's an inbuilt numeric keypad, as you can just about see here. If you're putting numbers in the middle of a text field like here, you'd press the function key bottom left. There we are, numbers going in. If you're in a numeric field, for example calling a number, you can just hammer these numeric keys anyway and the right numbers will pop up, which is a nice touch. The screen being larger than traditional Series 60 means that the icons and the fonts do look a bit strange tucked into the corners. You get used to it after a while. It does look a bit messy having 3 or 4 different fonts on each application screen. Some applications make you better use of this screen space than others, and I'll come to that in a moment too. The E61 is very much application heavy. It's got the full Series 60 application set with the PIM apps and tools, but it's also got a brand new Office suite, and I'll come to that in a moment. The basic applications like the Series 60 clock and calculator and so on, they really haven't changed from traditional Series 60 smartphones despite the extra space here, and you tend to get lots of white space, or depending on your theme, blue space, which isn't used terribly well. But from Nokia's point of view, they obviously don't want to tweak all the programs, especially for the E61, then have to remember to tweak them again every time they upgrade the base Series 60 software. So I'll let them off this. Contacts, again, a bit of empty space around the screen, but the fonts are nice and it's certainly very, very readable. Messaging gets its own key here below the screen, being one of the prime uses of the device. And if we go into the main inbox for text messages and beamed items and so on, you can see here there are 10 or 11 headers visible at any one time in a fairly small font, but at least you can fit a phone number on. And bringing one of them up on screen, you can see again the font is quite readable. Back to the applications themselves. Tools, I'll just leave on the screen for you to scan over the icons. Pretty standard Series 60 utilities, settings. It's notable for having these new Series 60 3rd edition GPS enabled programs, positioning and navigator, which simply monitor your progress in latitude, longitude against the waypoints you set, and then tell you you've got to go X degrees in this direction for 20 kilometers or whatever to find your way back to where you started from. Organizer, the standard Series 60 set, of course. Calendar benefits enormously from the extra screen space, but this is the day view with items running down the screen. There's the week view is now quite usable. I haven't got many appointments on this test unit, but you can see that there's a fair amount of screen real estate available. The month view, it looks quite enormous on this large screen compared to how it normally looks on Series 60 devices. Back in Organizer again, notes, standard note taker, you saw that earlier. Calculator is a bit disappointing, as my friend Ewan Spence remarked in his text review on All About Symbian. You can put in numbers here using and functions using these on-screen operator icons, but you can't use the plus and the minus and the star and the divide characters on the keyboard for doing the different functions. You have to use the up and down arrow to select the operator from the on-screen grid, and that's a bit disappointing. Okay, we've seen messaging already. The web browser is the now standard Series 60 3rd edition next generation browser. The key features, of course, are the page overview, so you can scroll around a page and jump instantly to the bit you want, with pages being laid out in just about desktop fashion, and you can scroll around. One thing I also liked was the visual history, navigation options history, and you can see at a glance the pages you've just visited graphically laid out, and then you can jump to them with a single key press. Now to the Office applications. As with messaging, these are critical to the E61 and are part of the reason for the E61's existence. In the Office group there's a very functional file manager, and the nice thing is you can keep your documents in any folder you want. You don't have to stick to the Nokia defaults, and once you've found documents within a folder, you can launch them simply by moving to them and pressing enter. You don't have to open the word processor first and then open the file from within its own file list. So these things are integrated quite well. Here we are in opening the Documents application, the word processor, with my test file. Lots of different fonts and effects, just to check those. In terms of zooming, you can zoom in to quite a significant degree. I'm just going in one level at a time here, but you can also zoom to a particular percentage. I'll just do that now. Ratio, let's put in, well, we'll put in 100% and see what happens. There we are, that's 100% of how it will appear on a printed page. The Office suite is impressive in that it does include most features of Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel files. I'll just zoom out so we can actually see what we're doing here. Okay. Including embedded tables and embedded pictures. As you can see here, even Microsoft Word embedded objects appear. Curiously, in this is actually a pre-production E61, and there are some slight funnies in terms of fonts changing when you return documents to the desktop, but we'll let them off for now and assume that will be fixed in final firmware or in a firmware update. For now, though, let's go back to the back from editing this word processor document and go back to the file manager. And then you'll notice also there that I've got folders here for presentations and for workbooks. Workbooks being another pseudonym for spreadsheets, of course. And here's one of the spreadsheets I was testing earlier. One thing you'll notice, and which is rather curious, is that as the program opens the workbook, you get this warning saying that some content might be lost on round-tripping it back to the desktop. And the reason I say this is curious is because the other Office modules, the documents and presentations, they're actually more liable to lose fonts and change stuff in my tests with this pre-production hardware, whereas the sheet was absolutely perfect. So quite why sheet is the only one that pops up the warning, I do not know. Anyway, back into the spreadsheet itself, and it's pretty standard fare. If you've used one spreadsheet, you've seen them all. The screen's used very well in this. You can zoom in and zoom out, and as you can see here, you can see a fair amount of information at once. This is just zooming out to show you how far it can go. Of course, it starts to come a point where you can't read it anymore, so we'll take it back to 100%. That's a bit more like it. One curiosity, and something that perhaps they might be going to tweak in firmware, is the fact that when you want to edit a cell, you get this huge area at the top of the screen. Now I presume this is so that you can put in a couple of lines of text in a cell, which might make sense for some spreadsheets, but for a purely numeric spreadsheet it does seem as if this isn't optimized very well. Let's go back for now. So that's the spreadsheet module. You can also do basic charts, as you can see here. I'll just show it on screen. It's not terribly powerful graphically, and you can't customize the charts or create new ones, but you can certainly view what other people have sent you. The presentation module, equally as powerful. You can edit files in the outline view or in slide view. There we go. This is my test PowerPoint presentation. Each of these is one slide. And if I now go into the preview mode, you can see each slide, and I'll just step through the different slides in the show, and then you can use the navigator to look at attached notes for each slide and perhaps edit a new note for each one. Now, having done your presentation, prepared it, you then want to present it with to a Bluetooth projector, and they've got this screen export utility, which allows you to hook up what you're seeing on the screen to a Bluetooth data projector. You can then, of course, pop back into presentation and then run your whole show. Go into presentation, let's use manual mode, and you can then step through your slideshow slide by slide with everything appearing on the screen, also appearing on the hall's projector via the wonders of Bluetooth, and that's pretty cool. So back to applications. We've had a look at the Office. I will just briefly show you the icons for the printer support, most of which seem to be driven by HP, which is fine because they seem to be the market leaders in Bluetooth printers. But I won't demonstrate that because I haven't got a printer attached. Then there's the usual Series 60 connections, which is Bluetooth, infrared, setup, Wi-Fi, and so on. There's also an instant messaging application, although you'll probably have your own third-party solution for that. Media is interesting. Despite the fact this being a business device, you've still got full display of pictures, a video, sound. I'll just demonstrate that briefly. This is the image gallery. Let's bring a picture or two up on screen. There we go. And also I'll show you a video clip. And this supports the full range of MMS, 3GP, and MPEG-4 formats. This is the smartphone Show 9 being played in the built-in real player. I'll just bring that up full screen and let that run for a bit. Let's fast forward it to somewhere in the middle of the show, and then take it back to full screen.
3.5mm stereo headphone socket rather than, again, Nokia making you use their own port version. And the main advantage of this is that you can plug in your own high quality.
There we go. So you can see that the video is quite smooth, and that the extra large screen 320 by 240 it matches exactly the most common frame format of any videos on the internet. So it's well placed to play back stuff that you've downloaded. Although you can play music from the track list in gallery, it's normally recommended to actually start up the music player properly, which has a more comprehensive set of menus. So having started music playing, for example here, we'll press options and go into music library, and you can see, as with most music players these days, you can browse it by albums or by artists, or set up your own track lists, aka playlists, for keeping yourself amused while you're working with the E61. There's also a flash player for playing back simple flash animations and games. Finally, under installations, that's third-party software that you've installed. The E61 comes with Golf Pro 2, a pretty capable golf game from Synergenics, and a development of one of my favourite games for the original Series 60 smartphones. It's graphically quite impressive, although it's not perhaps as in detail as the original Series 60 version. Still nice to have, and it's totally free, of course. Other freebies you get include a wireless presenter module written by a third party, and a zip file manager, which has been free on just about every Nokia device for the last 5 years. Again, nice to have, very much a file manager like interface, but you can compress folders to zip files and vice versa, and open zip files you've downloaded off the internet. So there's the application set for the Nokia E61. There's Wi-Fi, as with all the Nokia E-series business devices, which means it's a doddle to connect up wherever you are. Just piggyback on the next person's Wi-Fi connection leaking out of their house, or if you really want to, you can pay money and hook up at Wi-Fi hotspots that you pay for. Either way, the combination of Wi-Fi and 3G and GPRS means that you can basically connect to the internet wherever you are by some means or other, and this works well in conjunction with both messaging and the web browser. The E61 is an impressive device. It's an unusual form factor, and you may feel strange using it as a phone, but it's not really designed to be used as a phone. It's a communicator, and the extra screen space and the extra keyboard space and the fact that you can type at a reasonable speed means that a lot of people are going to get a lot of use out of this for serious business purposes.